G'day, H.M. Hart here. Can you really love a borderline enough? Will they ever really trust you? Do you feel like somehow you're the bad guy or the bad person because no matter how much you give, they just keep on not trusting you. They just keep on not believing you. They just keep on thinking that you're lying to them. Because people with BPD, unless I would say the amount of treatment that it takes to almost fully recover, significant long-term treatment, unless that, and that doesn't usually save relationships. But people with BPD feel unworthy, whether they're aware of it or not. They feel unworthy. They feel like they don't deserve love. They don't have that self-reference or self-cohesion I've been talking about. They have an absence of self. Not just a stable, unstable sense of identity, but they're seeking identity through you. How can that ever really work? And so what happens for people with BPD is they really just don't know how to trust you, because it takes having a self to be able to trust others. It takes a reference for self and a known sense of self to be able to trust self, like self, develop worth and self-esteem, heal shame and abandonment wounds. Shame wounds are the kind of wounding, especially in childhood, that tell a child, people with BPD grow up with the idea, I am bad. Not I did something bad or I could have done something, but I am bad. So the more that you are kind, the more love that you give, the more that you are there for the person with BPD, the more you prove yourself, the more you put up with, are stressed out by, are trying to always calm them down about the fact that you aren't cheating on them, you're not going anywhere, you do love them, because they simply can't believe it. And the other thing is people with BPD will always let you show them how much you love them, and they will always, I shouldn't say always, but more of the time than not, shoot it down, right? Do the push-pull, push you away, because they want to be loved, but they're lacking that sense of self. And what does that mean? Well, the love that they're looking for, you can't possibly, no matter what you give, how much you sacrifice and abandon yourself, and overgive, and argue and go around those cycles of trying to get them to understand, or trying to speak logic to their highly dysregulated, triggered emotion often. They will let you, because they want to be loved. They will let you work at it, and try. But they don't believe they're worthy of it on some really deep subconscious level. And so with that, the other aspect of this is they want the love, but why is it that, aside from the trust and the lack of self, why is it that your love can never be good enough or enough for an untreated or not super well treated, for lack of a better way to put it, person with BPD? Your love can never be enough, because subconsciously they are seeking the love of the wounding parent that didn't give them love, or the wounding parent that they perceive in 25% of the cases that didn't love them. And so you then take on the object other parent representation and devaluation of, you're not doing it right, it's not good enough, don't trust you. It's sort of like this is subconscious, but it's almost like people with BPD are saying, I dare you to love me enough, go ahead. It's not enough, it's never enough. I want it, I don't want it, right? The push, the pull, the approach avoidance. So can you really love somebody with BPD? Well, enough. Can you love somebody with BPD enough? No. And that's not about you. Because the more you give, the kinder you are, the more they fear engulfment, the more with engulfment fear they feel controlled, the more they push away or ghost or, go around the cycles, the more they devalue. And once they devalue or devalue often, they're not coming back to re-idealizing you. It's really important to know that as well. So I just want to say, can you love a person with BPD? Well, you can love them, but then the other part of this is, who are you loving exactly? Because they don't know who they are. And then you're going to, at some point or other, and you may well have already realized, that the person you are with or were with BPD, isn't who you thought they were, isn't who you thought you were falling in love with. It's like I mentioned in my video, the borderline siren song. It's all just too good to be true. And it's tragic. It's tragic for the people of BPD, and it's tragic for partners, loved ones, or in any other relationship type, the favorite person, the siblings, friends, etc. It's like these people just can't accept being accepted because they feel unacceptable. Until and unless a whole lot of significant treatment, getting closer to recovery than not, right? Than being back at ground zero. Or, as I've said before, in the active throes of BPD. But I just want to add in here, people with BPD, they have capacity for empathy, but they're often focused on themselves because they're in such a protective mode against pain that's triggered inside them that isn't your fault, that triggers back to what happened to them in childhood, or what was perceived to have happened to them in childhood in 25% of cases. And so they just they don't understand where their pain is coming from when they're overwhelmed by triggered, emotional dysregulation that can include age regression at times. But, so they have empathy at times, but they're so busy trying to survive, for lack of a better way to put it, emotionally, because they have an arrested emotional self. Therefore, they have lack of self. And everything is about survival. From the moment that happened on, much to the not so much awareness of people with BPD. So they can have the capacity for empathy, and they are capable of empathy. Like anybody that goes through BPD recovery and really gets the kind of treatment it takes to get recovered from BPD, to grow and to recover from BPD, will have empathy. It's not like it's gone or lost or totally absent. And there is about 10 people, yeah, where did it was all. About 10% of all those diagnosed with BPD can be more severely impacted, which can mean a lot of different things. But it can mean that there are some people out there with BPD that really still may have the capacity for empathy, but they're really not able to be empathic very often, if at all. And this is where then you get a lot of people who are the exes of BPD saying, well, hey, they're just sociopathic. They have no empathy, and they're going to fail you in empathy, yes, because they were failed in empathy, and when they get triggered, everything changes. So even when that person that you fell in love with is kind of seemingly there sometimes, well, when they get triggered, no, again, they're going to the abyss of lack of self. And the pain is associated with that, and they don't have the awareness of why. And so they'll put it on to you that it's your fault, that they'll project it out onto you, and then you're feeling bad, and you're doing all you can do, and you're doing more. And so loving a person with BPD, you fall in love with somebody who you think they are, and essentially you're falling in love with someone who doesn't exist. And then you're realizing that at some point. Still really hard to wrap your head around it, though. And so, can you love a borderline? Well, I guess the answer, to be really honest, would be yes and no. You can really feel love for them. You could feel in love with them. Or as a friend or a family member, you could love them. But they don't feel worthy of the love that they most want. And yes, they deserve. But if they don't go to treatment, if they don't go through this process of finding self and doing the really hard, and it is difficult work, but it is doable, to find self and to grow that lost self up, so to speak, through therapy and that process. Unless and until they do that, and even if they want to do that now and you're in a relationship, or you have been, or it's on off again, and you're still loving them, and you're still, maybe not accepting the relationship is over and struggling with that because of hoovers or reverse hoovers and contact, and maybe not holding no contact. People with BPD can really be so compellingly, in some ways, vulnerable, but often the opposite, because of protecting a really wounded and damaged vulnerability that becomes just something that they can't feel or be with because it's intolerable to them. And it takes them back, it triggers them back to the original core wound of abandonment and the attachment difficulties and the loss of self. So they will always give you the opportunity to provide a vehicle for their identity. And they don't do that consciously. And equally as unconsciously, they will let you try to prove your love. But they will never trust it, because they don't have a self from which to trust it. And they don't, when they're experiencing something, they don't see what you're going through, or how their own feelings about themselves, which they might not understand that's what's happening, but they don't see how that leaves them feeling like everything they want just feels like they don't deserve it and it couldn't possibly happen for them. Very negative, very wounded, very damaged place that most people with BPD are in. And so you can love them, but essentially you're not really loving them, even though you're trying to. And then it can never be good enough, because they really need a parent's love that they didn't get, that they lost themselves to. It's a pretty bleak situation for most people in most relationships or other relationship types close to somebody with BPD, because so many of these people, such a high percentage of people with BPD will, even if they seek treatment, they'll quit. Something will go wrong. It's not always their total fault or anything, but they just won't get where they need to go, or it's too painful or too scary or too difficult. So you can love somebody with BPD, but then you have to ask yourself, who am I loving after? Like, excuse me, who is this person? I don't know. And then you have these feelings. And then what keeps people stuck for so long, whether you're an ex or you're somebody who's struggling with the idea that, not the idea, but the knowing that you need to break up with someone or get a divorce from someone with BPD that you've loved, and then you feel like you're abandoning them. And yet, if people don't abandon them, it's not really abandonment. But if you don't choose yourself and take care of yourself when you're already in a parent role with a friend, favorite person, any relationship type, or a partner with BPD, or an ex, you end up in the parent role. Oh, crazy bug here. You end up in the parent role, and when people are in significant other relationships, even friendships, even whatever favorite person really means to people with BPD, you're not their parent. And so then you're not seen and you're not heard. But all of this and the compromised empathy, or the inability to express empathy for you, because they're so busy just trying to survive, which, yes, that can look very self-absorbed and that can be very hurtful. But it's not that they're sociopathic or psychopathic at all. And so many people just make these comments and videos and write on blogs and stuff, so cavalier, just, hey, couldn't do this for me, couldn't do that, couldn't, but like, so, oh yeah, she was really sociopathic when he or she, she did this or he did that, and they had this funny look on their face. And at the end of the day, whether that's what you believe or not, it's not really true of them. But what is true of people with BPD is that no matter how much you love them, they can't trust it, and they can't reciprocate it. And I have this bug flying around me here. So you can love somebody with BPD, but you can't really. And it's tragic for everybody and painful for everybody involved. And so what you really need to know is you need to take care of yourself. And you need to look at the reality, if you're an ex, that, are you still from your codependent place of, wanting this to work out so bad? Are you still fighting for this love or the ability to love them? The them that you don't even know who they are? Because that is part of codependency and self-sacrifice. And you're also externalizing something subconsciously onto the person with BPD in a different way than they do that to you. You're actually fighting for something else to work out that is your woundedness from childhood, even more so than a current relationship or if you're the ex of somebody with BPD. So anyway, there's my best answer to, as somebody who recovered from borderline personality disorder over 30 years ago now, you can love them, but you can't really, because you don't know who they are, and they don't know how to trust your love. Take care.